Hi, everybody. This is Michael Butterman, Music Director of the Shreveport Symphony Orchestra, and I'm delighted today to be speaking with our friend Francisco Fullana, violinist, who joined us in November of 2019 to play the fifth violin concerto of Mozart. And so we are going to share with you that recording in a moment. But before then, I want to just have a chance to talk to him and find out a little bit about the piece itself, and also, of course, as everybody is doing right now, finding out how he's doing. So, Francisco, where are you right now, and how are you doing?
Hi, Michael. I'm great. I'm within the circumstances. I'm in Palo Alto in California,
Okay.
and just practicing, kind of diving into Mozart. With, not related to this, but just that's been my obsession during the quarantine, and enjoying the nature around me, which I feel very lucky that I'm surrounded by this, at least that I'm able to.
Indeed, yes. You've got a Palo Alto is a gorgeous part of the country, and right now, as you can see, it's lovely in Shreveport as well.
Bermuda, maybe Caribbean, Bahamas.
Well, anyway, yeah, looking a little tropical, I realize, which is I kind of like.
It's great.
But so we're all trying to enjoy it while we can. And I know, well, we'll talk about, I know you're working on some projects that are sort of related to Mozart and also the circumstances in which we find ourselves. I mean, reminding everybody of your background, you're the 2018 Avery Fisher Career Prize winner and doing a lot of really fantastic work as a soloist with orchestras all around the world, but also a lot of chamber music, as I know. And you played this concerto of Mozart when you came. This is a piece. Let's just talk about them for a second. Mozart wrote 5 concertos, as I recall, and but they're relatively early works, are they not?
Yeah, he was still in Salzburg. He was quite young, in his 20s, and he wrote all of them for the concertmaster of the orchestra that the bishop had, his boss, which I mean, there's a famous story of him getting fired and kind of getting kicked in the in the rear end because of it. And but he really, I mean, the beautiful part about Mozart is that he always composed most of his pieces thinking of whatever performer he was writing it for. So in this case, they're some of the most virtuosic pieces up until that point in terms of violin concertos.
Right. So he knew the soloist and that person's capacity and so on, and kind of tailored the music to him. But yeah, you're so right. I mean, I can think of the clarinet concerto. I talked to Ricardo Morales recently about that, and we knew who the dedicatee of that was, and yeah, and of course most of the piano concertos he wrote for himself to play, so he certainly knew his own capabilities there. He was a violinist, though, of some.
Yeah, he played some. I think he loved viola apparently as well.
Right.
But of course, I mean, I would say you can tell that he really knew the instrument well. I mean, it's very it's quite comfortable, and yeah, it works really well for the instrument, and just the way he uses the A major to really open up things.
Yes, well, that is sort of a bright, kind of open feeling key, I guess you would say. This is something called the Turkish concerto. So tell us a little bit about where that name comes from and why we call it that.
Turkish music bands were very well known around that time in Austria. They would come and they would have all these cymbals and all this kind of percussion and percussive instruments. And they were very popular, and people really enjoyed listening to their music, almost like military marching kind of thing. And so kind of Mozart included some of that, influenced by that. And, he was a smart guy in many ways, not just as obviously as a genius musician, but also I think in a way, he included some of this music, or influenced by that music, to almost in a commercial way as well, like to really capture the audience's attention and to really grab them in that way, and to remind them that, well, there's this music that comes from far away that we all enjoy, and I want to include it in my music as well.
Right. So in other words, if it's hot at the time, he was going to make use of it.
Exactly.
Okay, well, yeah, you got to be smart and entrepreneurial in this business. That's for sure.
He had that side.
And it's in the last movement that we hear this. So it starts off like a minuet, basically, right? It's sort of in 3, and then it sort of comes to a bit of a pause, and then we go into something that feels very different.
Yeah, it sounds like the end of the movement. I mean, exactly, it plays the theme, and exactly this, it's a rondo, so it comes back, and then it just ends, and it feels like the whole concerto is done, and then there's this almost rapture of intense, the strings and the cellos, and he even uses this con leño effect in the middle of the cellos. Yeah.
Right. So we should mention what that is. Coleño means to play with the wood, basically, with the percussive, with the back of the bow, basically, creating a percussive sound. Because when you think about it, the orchestra that he's writing for is strings, oboes, and horns, basically, right? So I mean, there's no percussion in the orchestra, no timpani, nothing. But he creates an effect that is percussive, and as you said, kind of very, very gutsy or just
very rustic, and it does feel like a marching band in a way, with strings though, which is kind of crazy, right?
Marching strings, right?
Yeah.
So that aspect of the third movement is where we get this moniker. The performance you played for us was using an instrument, the instrument that you play on most of the time now, which has an interesting provenance. Can you tell us a little bit about?
Of course, yes. Well, it was made about 40 years or so before the concerto was written. Wow. In 1735 in Cremona, and it's a beautiful Guarneri that's named Mary Portman, and it has a beautiful history. I mean, a really interesting history. Early 1900s, very early, Miss Mary Portman, who was a very wealthy, came from a wealthy family. She was a violinist from England, and she was kind of obsessed with this instrument. And she even tried to build a whole concert hall around the sound of the instrument, which never really got to finish. But the war came in, and she ended up protecting the instrument through World War I. But the funny thing is that she had actually bought the violin from one of the most well-known violinists of all time, which is Fritz Kreisler. So this was Kreisler's first Dal Gesù, first Guarneri, and his first big purchase, I would say, in that way, right? As an instrument. Right. At the time, musicians could still buy, who did well, could still buy these kind of instruments. Now it's much harder. But he ended up being a collector. I mean, he ended up having, two other Guarneris and 2 other Strats. But this one was really his first, the first instrument that he fell in love with.
Right. So. Well, you mentioned something that is probably worth underscoring a little bit, which is to say that these days most musicians are not in a position to purchase an instrument like that, and in fact this is not something that you own, this instrument.
No, I wish. It's very generously on loan from Clement and Karen Arison. They are a wonderful couple from Buffalo, and they are big supporters of the symphony there and the Philharmonic there, and they also own a couple other instruments, a beautiful Stradivari that was played by Augustin Halilik for now. He just switched, but he had it for 10 years, and a beautiful Gobelli as well that Tim Fay plays. But there's this amazing foundation that's called the Stradivari Society of Chicago, that basically what they do is they kind of match younger artists that need an instrument to be able to really achieve their potential and to really develop their career, and owners who are they're music lovers, and they also feel like it's a great investment. So
right. Well, and it's we're fortunate that there are organizations like that are pairing
it's amazing,
need and can play the instrument to its fullest as you can, and then these people who have the instruments and are willing to make them available to be heard by people all over the world, and it's a win-win, I think you would say. Before we go, I wanted to just ask you to share with me a little bit about a project you.
Sure.
Before we started recording this, we talked a little bit about what you're doing right now. So everybody who's a musician now is trying to figure out, at least for the near term, what they can do without playing concerts to 1,000 people or so. And so Mozart's figuring into one of the things you're working on.
I've always been a bit of a Mozart fanatic, I would say. I mean, it's definitely my desert island composer. If I had to choose one composer, and as hard as it is, having Bach and Beethoven out there, but Mozart is really, for me, I just feel like I connect the best with, and on many levels. And I was like, well, what can I play? Because there's no Mozart solo violin music. And unfortunately for the time being, we're not even being able to play chamber music in even a house setting. So I was like, okay, well, I really want to explore all his violin sonatas, and he has many. He has like about I think like 25, something like that. And they're all really incredible pieces. But the piano part is, most of them, especially the earlier ones, is even quite a bit more important than the violin part. Mm. And so, you do, when you play them for my recital programs, I always, do a lot of score studying, really try to understand a lot of the piano part. But kind of I wanted to take that to the next level and actually learn those piano voices, both hands, on playing it on the violin, and then putting it kind of, through my newly found developing still editing skills, putting them together in a video and making a kind of a series out of it. So I'm trying to release one a week. I just finished the first one this week, and yeah, it's still a learning curve in many ways, but it's really fun to kind of, I mean, for example, like I was just practicing the second movement of the G major, and some of these bass lines that are, so simple, but they are so gorgeous just on its own. And then the way how that simplicity affects the rest of the harmony, and it really, it just one note at a time, it just takes you in all these unexpected, kind of journey. It's beautiful. So.
Well, I'm really interested to hear it, because I can imagine some of the right-hand writing and chords and so on being able to be played by a violin, but as you mentioned, the bass lines and so on are falling below the capacity of the violin. You have to transpose them up.
I do some octave transposing up, and then sometimes I've actually, for some of the F sharps, which, in D major, G major, things like that, I'm actually tuning down just for, that little bit, that fragment, and playing it.
So, in that case, he's taking his G string and tuning it down.
Yeah, exactly. Just below, just a half step or one step. More than that, then the sound doesn't really work. But for F sharps, you can make it work.
Very clever. Well, we'll look forward to enjoying those. But most of all, we're looking forward to remembering that wonderful performance that you gave back in.
I had a great time. It was such a special, I mean, every time that I play Mozart, it really is so special, because the collaboration with the orchestra is so deep. I mean, it really, talking about chamber music, right? I mean, it really goes at the core of that. I mean, we are, there's all these 2Ds that we can do. There are, it's just the collaboration, especially with, the concertmaster and me, and then when the oboe has a solo, and then you just, you have these connections, and almost, there's almost like the spider webs or these lines and threads that connect at different points while you're playing. And that's one of the main reasons why I love performing these concertos so much, his music. So
it is, and it does feel very much like a give and take and chamber music, and especially with someone like you who's so attentive. And the orchestra just thoroughly enjoyed collaborating with you, and you were a delight to host here in Shreveport, and we hope that you'll be back soon.
Yeah, no. I really had a great time, so I really hope so.
I'm very glad. All right. Well, thank you again, Francisco, and thanks to our viewers for being with us. Now, please enjoy the Concerto No. 5 for violin and orchestra by Mozart.
Thank you.